I want to be real for a second. When I was a kid, I had a PSP, and I didn't have it for long because I kept dropping it and breaking it and voiding the warranty because I was a dumb kid. But there are a few games on the PSP that I really loved playing, and there was this one in particular that I had a dream about a couple times. It was a racing game, and it was in a snowy environment 90% of the time. It was a little bit like, I think it's called Wreckfest. Just like a derby game, but in an Arctic environment. Yesterday I bit the bullet and I asked AI, I said, there was this handheld console game I played as a kid. It was a racing game. I was very young when I played it. Anyway, one of my favorite maps was like a ski resort in snowy. But I remember coming back to the beginning lap and falling off. The graphics weren't great, but I can't remember the name of this game, so it gives me a list. Because with those adjectives alone, those details, a racing game on the PSP with a snowy environment, how many different games could there be? And it gave me quite a few. However, I looked up the top option, MotorStorm, and I looked at one of the gameplay videos, and that was it, because just the graphics alone I knew from the get-go. It didn't have anything like amazing, and it was gonna be on the PSP, but games on the PSP looked good. Some of them did. Anyway, this one was okay. But the vehicles had colliders and shit. You could collide with different vehicles. You could fall off of environments. So, you know what I mean. Considering those factors, you could really nail it down to one or two specific games. So I'm not really a fan of AI, and I don't really want to become overly reliant on it, but I think for a situation like this, where I can't just, I don't really want to dig through every game ever released for the PSP sorted by category, and then check out every single entry because I can't remember the name to find out one of my childhood games. But I really did love this game. It was one of my earliest memories, to be honest. One of my very first games. One of my first experiences, forays in a gaming period. Because it wasn't too long after that I got an Xbox 360. So whenever I think about it, I think that I got the PSP actually before I even got the 360. You know what? No, I'm not sure because I had a GameCube as well. So it was it's just very hard to place things when you remember them decades later. I guess I would have to say it was the GameCube first. In any case, I was very young and just getting into gaming. I can tell you one thing for sure, the PSP was my very first handheld console. Now I know the Switch has released, the Steam Deck has released, the ROG Ally has released. I will be honest, I picked up a Steam Deck. Now, whenever I play the Steam Deck, I'm not really a fan of how it works. So, if I'm signed into my account on my Steam Deck, or somebody else is playing it at the same time as me, then I can't play something on my computer at the same time. I don't like that. I understand why. I know it's a safety feature, but it doesn't work, and it pisses me off because I have to go set it offline, and I have to do it like once every 24 or like 36 hours, and it's down to a fucking science, man. I get it now because I've been doing it for months, for fucking days straight, for months. So as far as handhelds go, I don't mind the deck. I haven't tried anything else. Well, no, that's a lie. I tried the Switch. It was okay. Nintendo's obviously got their family-friendly dynamic. If I had a kid or like just wanted to go for more lighthearted gaming, I would 100% pick a Switch. A Switch would be a perfect entry. Get them started with Animal Crossing. They'll be set. They will be set. However, I wasn't that lucky as a kid. you know, the GameCube's life cycle was ending, and Nintendo was moving on to different shit, like the Wii. I don't even want to really talk about the Wii, though. Now, this game, MotorStorm, did release for both the PSP and the PS2. There were quite a handful of games that did that, releasing on 2 different platforms. But, to be honest, I never really had a PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 3 was my first and last PlayStation, and it had quite a lot of great things going for it. For one, not having to pay for internet, or at least to be online, rather, but that was for like half of its life cycle until they started charging, so I said fuck you, and I went to 360. Actually, I think it broke. Something happened, but I went to 360 instead. And after I went to 360, I tried out Need for Speed for the first time. But this game is just very special to me. Mostly because it's really my first racing experience. I had nothing else to compare it to at the time. I loved the off-road mechanics. I loved how you could knock into other vehicles, get knocked off yourself. You could push them out of the way. It's just a standard racing game when you think about it, but not really to me. Not then. Because I had no frame of reference. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't care that I was coming in 5th or 6th place. I was happy to play the game. I was happy to have it be mobile, for fuck's sake, in my hand. You know, that's crazy to think about. In the 60s, they had to have an entire room for a computer that would hold half a megabyte of space. Now, we can have a fucking terabyte literally in our fingertips, you know what I mean? Of course, it'll be expensive as fuck, but hey, it won't be too much longer now. Well, actually, I think you can get 500 terabytes now, at least 200. So we're closer to petabytes than I initially thought. Hey man, technology is fucking, it's exponential, you know? People during my childhood used to say that we would never see a terabyte in our lives. We would be stuck with floppy disks and megabytes and even a couple gigabytes. Because then the 360 came with only 2 gigabytes of space. 2 or 4 for the storage disk whenever it released. And that was a lot of space at the time, especially considering that games still came on CDs. CDs. They still came physically, you know? We don't have this shit anymore where you have to download everything and you don't really own it. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, dude, when everything came on a disc, there are a few things you could buy digitally, of course, but whenever it came physically, there was more you could do with that space on the console because you weren't using it, you know what I mean? Later on, of course, the disc held so much, and you had to reserve the remainder, but not at this point. I do have to wonder, though, if this company ever made any sequels or what they're still doing now, like if they're still around, because that was 18 years ago, you know what I mean? And it was a relatively indie game, so I'm gonna hedge my bets. I'm gonna say that they're probably not doing anything because I don't know, it just seemed so different at the time. It wasn't really like a very popular game either.